Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa alihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ahu wa arina al-batila batila warzuqna ijtinabah. We are looking at Lama Iqbal's discussion of the main characteristics of what he called mystic experience. We covered the first point, and we also covered the second point in part. So we'll just restart from the second part. The second point is the unanalyzable wholeness of mystic experience. Mystic experience is not analyzable, and we discussed what that might mean last time. When I experience the table before me, innumerable data of experience merge into the single experience of the table. When I experience the table before me, innumerable data, obviously information is coming from the outer world to my brain. So from table to brain. And this experience is at the subconscious level as well as conscious level. Obviously at the subconscious level or implicit level even, generally a lot is going on, which is at least in part studied in psychology and physiology and neurology. And in philosophy, I guess. So when I experience the table before, innumerable data of experience merge into a single experience of table. Out of this wealth of data, I select. Now, Allama Iqbal's description gives the impression that this is some sort of a conscious selection, but if that's what he means, then that's not correct. We don't consciously select. I mean, we do consciously select things, but generally, when we are experiencing the world around us, as we know from Heidegger and phenomenology and other sources, experience of the world around us is mostly at the level of sort of what we can call being in the world, even if it is at the and this and only when there's some problem we actually consciously attain to specific aspect of that experience. So out of this wealth of data, I select those that fall into a certain order of space and time and round them off in reference to the table and round them off. Out of this wealth of data, I select those that fall into certain order of space. So and then you have the analysis of that information goes through this concepts of mind, etc. It depends on your reference of analysis of that sort of experience. How would you define them, or how would you understand this experience, whether you are an empiricist or rationalist or Kantian? Out of this wealth of data, I select those that fall into a certain order of space and round them off in reference to the table. In the mystic state, however vivid and rich it may be, thought is reduced to a minimum, and such an analysis is not possible. So the analysis he's talking about, he just gave us about the table, that is not possible with reference to the mystic experience, because in the mystic experience thought is reduced to minimum. Obviously what he means is conscious thought. But if we take a point before here, I select those that fall into, then this comparison or this contrast is misleading, because even in our ordinary experience, our thought is generally reduced to minimum. And when we do bring in our conscious thought to bear on that experience, then the nature of that experience changes from implicit to explicit, subconscious to conscious. So at most what we can say is thought is reduced to a minimum at a higher level in a mystic experience as compared to our ordinary experience. Otherwise the dichotomy Along Iqbal is trying to create here between our ordinary experience and mystic experience as he understands it, doesn't seem to stand. Okay, Allama Iqbal continues, but the difference of the mystic state from the ordinary rational consciousness does not mean discontinuance with the normal consciousness. So, but this difference, the difference he just explained, let's dwell on this a bit. So far, what Iqbal is saying is, in this second point, is that normal sense experience is contrasting our normal sense experience with mystic experience. It seems like the basic difference so far is that in normal experience, thought is sifting the information, categorizing at a more conscious level. On the other hand, this thought is reduced to minimum in mystic experience, and you don't perform that analysis, at least not in the first instance, or you can't perform that analysis which you can according to Iqbal in our normal sense experience. But I think he is going to still claim that there's no fundamental gulf between our normal experience and mystical experience, despite that, or in spite of that. The difference is that of degrees and not that of kind, so to speak. Okay, let's go back. So, but this difference of the mystic state from the ordinary rational consciousness, and by that mean our ordinary rational consciousness as it is manifested in our dealing with our surroundings through our sense perception and other related cognitive interaction with the world. Okay, but this difference of the mystic state from the ordinary rational does not mean discontinuance, but there is no fundamental gulf between, despite that, with the normal conscious, as Professor William James erroneously thought, probably in the variety of religious experience. So, I can't say anything about William James's comment, his comments on William James, because I don't remember what William James said in the varieties of religious experience. But at this point, we don't need to worry about that. And if we do need it, we'll go back to the book. The ordinary rational consciousness, in view of our practical need. By practical need, he means the need to cope with the world. Of adaptation to our environment takes that reality piecemeal. In normal day-to-day interaction with the world, our rational consciousness take the reality piecemeal, selecting successively isolated set of stimuli for response. Again, this seems to be a bit misleading in the sense that because when we are practically dealing with the world, we are not dealing at the conscious level, and we revert to the conscious level only when we have problems with our in our dealing with the world. Okay, the ordinary rational consciousness, in view of our practical need of adaptation to our environment, takes that reality piecemeal, selecting successively isolated set of stimuli for response. Now, this this analysis of our practical dealing with the world is what Heidegger would call objectivistic. Allama Iqbal's analysis of practical experience of our surroundings and our dealing with the world. It seems like, at least here, is objectivistic in the sense that it is too objectivistic and rationalistic in the sense that he seems to think that we deal with reality at a conscious level to start with. But if we go back to Heidegger's, for example, distinction between and I'm not going to explain too much here. I want you to go and search it for yourself. But Heidegger's distinction between the objects, our relationship with objects is of two kinds: ready to hand and then present at hand, or something like that. And then the third level is that of the experience of something in our environment as an object. So for Heidegger, it's like that: first, second, and third. So our basic dealing with the world is at the level of ready to hand. It is at subconscious and implicit level. When I'm crossing a street, when I am, avoiding a car, etc. I'm doing a lot of things, but those things are at more practical level and subconscious level. It's like, when you um, dealing with an equipment, for example, when you are mowing your lawn, for example, using your machine. As long as the machine is working, you don't even pay attention to the machine, or it's happening at the level of certain absorption in the reality. But when something breaks down, when the suddenly make a wrong move and the car is too close, or you have to stop, or the car has to stop, and you know hear the screeches of the car's brake, then the reality come to fore at a conscious level, because this our practical dealing with the world sort of breaks down. And then there's a third level, when you stand back and look at the hammer or the mower, or your situation from a distance. So the first level is really level of you are immersed in reality. So it's more like you are a fish in a pond, or you're seamlessly swimming, and uh, dealing with your surroundings. The second level is where the water is too low, maybe, and the fish has, and this fish has to struggle. And the third is the fish and water are totally gone, are separated. That's the third level. So the first and second the first level is for sure is at very subconscious level, and that's the level of the experience how Alam Iqbal is describing. So it's not a conscious level experience, and at this level our absorption in our reality is uh, almost complete, and our relation with our surrounding is not that of conscious thought or rational thought. It is more of at the level of skills and at the level of instincts. And so if we look at that level, the contrast is trying to make between the ordinary experience and the experience at the conscious level, ordinary experience, mistake experience that breaks down. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, so the mystic state brings us into contact with the total passage of reality. The same is true, really, at the level of ordinary sense experience as well. At least when that sense experience is at the level of what Heidegger calls ready to hand. So the mystic experience brings us into contact with the total passage of reality. Maybe the intensity and the reality is different, but the fundamental relationship seems to be similar, if not the same. The mystic state brings us into contact with the total passage of reality, in which all the diverse stimuli merge into one another and form a single unanalyzable unity. But that's the case with ordinary experience as well. When I'm mowing my lawn, or when I'm crossing the road, my experience is unanalyzable unity at that level. And even at the level of present at hand, the analysis it is still not at a fully conscious level. Maybe the difference is that in ordinary experience we can move from and the level of present the level of ready to hand from we can move from ready to hand to present at hand, and then at the objective level. And maybe he would say that we can't do that with the mystic experience. So that would be a different point. The mystic state brings us into contact with the total passage of reality, in which all the diverse stimuli merge into one another and form a single unanalyzable unanalyzable unity, in which the ordinary distinction of subject and object does not exist. So that distinction doesn't exist at the level of ready to hand either. So when um, uh, I'm mowing my grass or crossing the road, the really conscious distinction between subject and object generally doesn't exist, unless that experience breaks down. Then you move to the present at hand. So at least at the fundamental fundamental level of our dealing with the world, there seems to be no such contrast which Alam Iqbal is trying to make with the mystic experience as he understands it. Okay, I think that's we have covered the second point today, and next time inshallah we'll go on to the third point. Okay.